Good rising, tribe SRC. I am Anala D, your host, and we are so excited to bring you the 5th episode of The Power of Human Connectivity. We thank our mastermind contributors, humanitarian and lover of nature, Brother Mark Thomas, religious historian and educator, Pastor Archie Sanders, tech founder and upcoming author, Tamisha Burgess. And I don't see our numerologist on here today, but he's a master numerologist, Brother Lavelle Rouser, and host of Up at 11 with Kina Laus. And as always, we thank our audience for being with us again today. Now, last week, we heard our audience when you said that you wanted part 2 of the topic, who will be first, reflecting a change to affect the whole. Now, I don't see our guest speaker today, but I am sure, hopefully, that he will be here because we are again honored to blend our energy with our highly distinguished brother, illustrious Jakeem Bey of the Morris Imperial Restoration Caucus. Now, if you missed last week's episode, go to our YouTube channel, Shifting Religious Concepts, because Brother Jakeem unpacked some knowledge that I believe that everyone should have an opportunity to feast upon. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't wait to hear what our ancestors will have in store for us today. But before we do that, SRC welcomes you, our audience, to join in the conversation. You have something to say, want to ask a question, unmute your mic, raise your hand, and we will call on you to add to the topic on the table. Now, we already know what time it is, and what I'm about to say is very, very important. So I want you to take a moment, send to your friends and families the link that you use to connect to this live broadcast, because you already know it is going to be so good. And I'm excited about that. And as we continue to unpack this topic, let us keep this scripture in mind, which is 1 Corinthians 12:12, because it indicates that we are all members of one body. Now, Brother Jakeem in our last episode alluded that as a people, we mirrored what we planted in the past. Not his words verbatim, but what I understood from what he said is this: a lot of what has occurred in our world is the karma harvested as a result of past transgressions. In another episode on SRC, we discussed how we are all connected. And therefore, I believe that because we are connected, everything that is done can be imprinted or thus can affect the entire body as a whole. I also understand that our generations today have now shed or overcome past karma. In other words, this is a new era. But we must be careful not to plant seeds of transgressions today that we will harvest in our future. We live in a digital world. And as a result of living in this digital world, I believe that it is so important that we not allow our hearts and our minds to be imprinted or seeded with images that do not serve the whole. You see, this system has discovered a more expedient method of imprinting upon our hearts and our minds. Therefore, we must set an intention. I believe that we must set an intention regarding the type of seeds that we allow to take root within our kingdom, which is our mind, because as surely as I sit here, so within, so without. In other words, the planted seeds will manifest in our world. And I'm not sure if Brother Jakeem is on, but we're going to move on with this question. And if he's not here, someone else will be able to answer this question. But I was going to say to Brother Jakeem that I think it is important, and I'm saying to our mastermind and to the audience that I think that it is important that we learn from our ancestors what worked in our favor, as well as those things that ushered us into our demise. I remember one of my middle school teachers announcing to the entire class, "I've got mine and you got yours to get." I don't accept that statement, because in my personal opinion, it is the responsibility of the woke ones to educate our young brothers and sisters. And I believe that they must have the sense of the seeds that were planted by our ancestors that were later mirrored or harvested in future generations. And perhaps they can make better choices, better decisions. So here is my question. And I'm glad that our brother Jakeem is jumping on right now as I get prepared to ask this question of our brother. And here is the question. And I'll just give him a few seconds to connect here. But here's the question. To all of us, what were some of the seeds planted by ancestors that, number one, compromised the Moors' world position or status? And what was the cost of such a harvest? And then, of course, the follow-up question is, what must we do to ensure that we do not continue to plant those same type of seeds in this new age, in this new era? And Brother Jakeem, I know you just jumped on and you probably missed the question, but I want to bring it back again just a little bit. And that is, what were some of the seeds planted by our ancestors that perhaps compromised the Moors' world position or status? What was the cost of such harvest? And what should we do to ensure that we as a people do not continue to plant those same type of seeds in this new era? And the reason why I believe that this question is so important is because I believe that our children, our brothers and sisters, our young brothers and sisters need to understand what happened in the past so they don't continue to make the same mistakes or same decisions in this future. Let's welcome Brother Jakeem Bey.
It was a lot to do with how we treated others, and I'm not even gonna lie, you even have blood wars. These are where the blood wars began, because there were those who wanted to maintain the culture to a certain degree, and there were those who were maybe a bit too inviting, and you have those who violated treaties as well. One of the biggest things that I operate in is understanding our treaties and understanding how they help us abroad. And when you go through a lot of case studies, and it gives you, if you look at treaty case studies, they really give you a history. For us though, it's a bunch of factors as far as us treating others the wrong way and us violating our own laws, and a bunch of infighting, a lot of infighting. So much infighting to where that was really what demised the Moors. Not necessarily that they were just driven out by force, but more so that they were driven out by their own infighting and their own differences for many of reasons. Some felt as though the Albions, which you're calling European and white people by term, were like how you have the reverse of the caste system, but basically that they were on the bottom and we were on the top, because basically we were the aristocracy. We did things like we didn't allow them to own land. Sharecropping is not a new thing. We were the ones that began the feudal system. We were the ones who instituted the feudal system to where you have a landlord and you go to your landlord for anything. And the word husband comes from the word house bonds. So these were not even what you think of as in the term of matrimony. These were actually, in a sense, indentured servants, because kings who took over certain territories were not going to micromanage things. So that's where you have dukes, earls, barons, baronesses, dukes, duchess, these other royalties that were put in place to oversee things. But then that's where they instituted the bondsmen, because they couldn't be everywhere at one time either. So you had a lot of that. But then at the same time, again, like I said, in differences and violations of treaties, and because of things being instituted like feudalism and things of that nature, when we started infighting is when we really started to fall. So there were even those that understood the law of karma, and in today's people who try to tell history, they try to, I noticed that they like to talk about how Moors enslaved which is other Moors, but they try to say that they were the most instrumental in the slavery of so-called Black people who are actually Moors by law. But it's just like saying, well, Jesse Jackson did it. They don't understand it from that perspective, because they think Moors is a separate group. No, this is your national identity. And what happened was there were some who understood the law of karma and initiated it because they saw the fall. So, but they'll be looked at in history as turncoats when it's not true to a certain degree. So, and they knew that if they initiated their own karma, the blow wouldn't be so severe. See, when you do something, if you understand the science of it, when you institute your own karma or you initiate your own karma, the blow, it doesn't, the retribution is not so bad or not as horrible as it can be. I'm not gonna
Let me ask you a question before you move on with that. Why wouldn't it be, if I instituted my own karma, for example, I enslaved people, why wouldn't that karma be reflected on me as hard?
For example, then, well, why wouldn't is because you are in a sense, that's what the science is. And I'm not going to say I'm the most keen on it, but basically no different from if you're playing football and you, instead of letting someone hit you, you also initiate contact, so you don't take the brunt of the blow. It's that same concept.
Got you. So, makes sense.
You know what I mean? Even though I'm not going to say it didn't hurt, but it's not as severe as it could have been.
And so, in other words, because what we're talking about here, we are saying we want our especially our young people, to understand that some of the things that happened, there was a karma that was a result of that. And what you're saying is, well, hey, we realized what we did. And therefore, what we did is we instituted some of this so that it kind of could be spread around. It wouldn't, the blowback wasn't so harsh for us, for the people that was causing it. Tamisha, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'm thinking of cognitive dissonance. Grand rising, everybody. I'm hearing cognitive dissonance, which means you basically separate yourself consciously and subconsciously and energetically from this idea of karma. So if I enslave people, on some level, it is not transgression if those people agree to my enslavement. On some level, if they agree to being enslaved, right? So when I think about just the idea of working, some people call 9-to-5 job, and enslaving it on a job, or enslaving it in some relationship, or enslaving it where we are right now, just in the world. We, to some extent, have agreed to be enslaved. So is it karma? Is there retribution if I am signing up for it on an energetic level? So, Illustrious, when you mentioned karma, as far as that blowback, there isn't, if I am willingly walking into being controlled, if I'm willingly walking into being governed in some sense, is it really karma, or is it agreed upon?
No, it's agreed upon, sometimes unknowingly, if you understand what I mean, but if you doing it knowingly, then the blow will not be so bad, as opposed to you doing it unknowingly, then you're subject to whatever comes your way. For example, what we're into, what we think the United States is, which is a corporate colony instituted by Great Britain via the Virginia charters and Penn charters. This is basically what they're doing to us. When you look at the Constitution, especially like the I think the 13th, I think it was the 13th Amendment, that put an emphasis on voluntary servitude. Put an emphasis on involuntary servitude as opposed to voluntary servitude. Very, very important. So if you volunteer to be into servitude, then there's no harsh penalty for that. But someone forcing you, there's a harsh penalty upon that. But they were slick with it. So in a sense, that is an agreement that you're not aware of, because they didn't make emphasis on that.
That makes so much sense. I want us to, I don't want Pastor Archie to lose whatever he wanted to bring to the table, but we are still having this conversation, guys. So.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Grand Rising, top of the morning. This is very interesting already to me. I'm having a few sound issues this morning, but we'll get through it. As long as y'all can hear me and I can hear you. Some things came to mind as the conversation was going on, especially with slavery and karma. I come to find out that if man does not understand his position or his nature, I put it that way. See, we're saying people are doing things, but the people that are in, the ones that are in control of making the laws and making the rules, if these people are not understanding man's nature that was taught by the ancestors. See, the thing about our ancestors, and this is in my opinion, I say in my opinion, but the things about the ancestors, they didn't try to educate as the world educates today. They pulled out what were in you. The education system today tried to put something in you. You understand? See, yeah.
Difference between education and indoctrination.
See, and we have to be smart enough to come to understand. It's just like segregation and separation. Segregation, you are forced to do something, but separation, you do it on your own so that you can build up your culture. But what I'm trying to get the understanding, get the point is that if we have people in position that are in that lower level of thinking, Sayu, my grammar may be wrong, Sayu, Kabat, if they're in that level of thinking and they're in position, they're only going to think about their sensual self, the things that help them and what builds their family up and build their people up. If you got all those kind of people at that level that are trying to teach us and educate us concerning things, they only want to educate us concerning the things in the lower level of, you understand what I'm saying? They're not gonna, they don't operate up in the higher consciousness. And our ancestors required you to, as far as the tree of life is concerned, the 10 spirits, they allowed you to be above the 7th spirit before you actually got into government and began to set rules and to rule people. You had to have that mindset had to be there.
Absolutely. And what he's speaking of is very vital to the mystery system, because in Hecapata, which they call Egypt now, which another empire, and was not in just one land that we believe, it was very fervently here as well. You would go through the mystery school. We're talking about life school. We're talking about 50 something years into this school, which is pretty much what Masonry is doing right now, because Masonry is nothing but more science again. And it's about agriculture, navigation, and geometry. And it's the same thing exactly. We taught from a holistic perspective, and that I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Even when we had people in servitude, we allowed them to have apprenticeship. We taught them things. We made it so that they could earn a living. But then again, like I said, there's a difference between Phoenix Moors and Dragon Moors, and I want to make this distinction. Phoenix Moors were more philosophical, more spiritual, and were the teachers. These were the brothers who led by teaching. You know, they were more peaceful. They were more cultivating, more progressive, more ambitious in the sense of education. Dragon Moors, these are your thugs. These are your brutes. These are your brothers who are the hard to the core, and they want to show off power. So that's where the battle was. It was between the Dragon Moors and the Phoenix Moors. And more so, anytime you see a movie, any movie on Dragon is actually depicting a Moor. Little as quiet as it's kept, but it was the brutality. And notice that the dragon is always an enemy. Very few movies have good dragons, but this dragon is symbolized to depict the Dragon Moor.
Wow.
And how he's widely feared, and only the beauty could soothe him a lot of times, which is the Albion woman, what we call today European and white woman. And so in a sense, if I were to paint these specific tribes that were, I could say that it was the Abbasids, the Umayyads. The Umayyads were basically your Phoenix Moors, and the Abbasids was a warlike tribe, which what you would call your Dragon Moors.
So let me ask you this question. So in just like what you're describing there, and we go back and we talk about some of the segments we've had before, even when you watch or you think about people that were called witches, there were always the light, and there was always the dark. You always had a group of people, like you said with the Moors, you had a group of people that were, I should say, going against the grain per se, or just doing the things because they wanted the power. They had power, but they wanted more of that. They wanted everybody to honor them. The same thing with the people in the Bible stories, the people that sat at the gates. They wanted all the power. They wanted everybody to come to them and ask them all the questions. And then again, moving right back into talking about the witches again, they had all this power, but they didn't know how to use it, and they persecuted people instead of helping people. So then you're talking about the same type of thing where we had Moors and even, even today we have groups of people. Our young people, you have they call them gangs on the street, but it's nothing different, where you have some people that want to help, and then you won't have some people that's trying to persecute everybody else. It's the same type of thing as what you're talking about. I think I understand that.
and the witches, and I want to give clarification when we're talking about witches. The understanding, when you understand it in the ancient sense, a witch meant a wise woman.
Right. That's right.
Demonized. It was demonized by the when the Albion started to collect, when they started to group, and when they started to try to take over and put people in a monotheistic sense of religion, is where you get the so-called Spanish Inquisition. And the Spanish Inquisitionists were about torture and persecution, period. And this is what happened. So you had the Catholic Church is one of the biggest proponents in the destruction of our culture abroad. And they were the biggest persecutors. Man, it's so deep. Even the Salem witch burnings, who do you think they were burning? They were burning our women.
That's right.
Because people were coming to our women for healing, and they couldn't get it from the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church is like, hey, well, listen, I don't need this competition, okay? And so there was this. That's where they sent the militias.
That's right.
And
we've moved into this new era, this new age, and I want, guys, jump into this conversation. We've moved into this new era. Do you believe that a lot of the past karma, we have overcome in this new generation, but yet we still need to understand those things that could bring on additional karma if we're not careful?
No, absolutely, because you have to remember, okay, for example, you asked me, one of the questions that you posed via the email is, what does that look like? Okay, what is nationality in the sense? What does it take to build a nation? Well, what a nation is a collective of people by consanguinity or kinsmanship, meaning melanated, or whatever that may be, culturally, the same thing. What signifies our unity is a covenant. And what a covenant is a constitution. And this is where you outline structure and order. And this is where you point out whether or not there are transgressions, and we are to abide by those. That way we don't transgress each other again. So that's what unity looks like for us. Because same thing when the powers, when the European powers got together, what they did was they created covenants amongst each other. Same thing we have to do. And this is ancient stuff. That's what a constitution is. A constitution is a covenant.
That's right.
So therefore, that outlines the structure and order. And this is what I'm gonna say. And I hear and see, when we don't know history, we say things and we're unconscious of what it is. So I hear a lot of people saying things about Babylon this and Babylon that because we know about it as a story of the Bible. Well, one, those are our ancestors. Now, this is what I'm not saying. I'm not saying they were so benevolent. However, they had a certain structure and order. If you did not have them, you wouldn't even have what you call time. These are the people that measure out the sexagesmal system. What you call the 60-second minute, the 60-minute hour, the 24-hour day. They measured this. They were the ones who created the monetary system. When you're talking about the gold and silver system, which is based off the sun and the moon, man and woman. Man being, like I said, being tied to the sun, and woman being tied to the moon.
Oh no, I wanted to ask. So when we think about the history of our people, and you think about the young people, our young brothers and sisters of today, what is that thing? What is, because we talked about, and I think Tamisha mentioned something last week. She said that, and Brother Archie as well, about the mental capacity. Because say, for instance, you build a nation, you have the covenant, we have all these great things, but then you have people in there who have not renewed their minds, who don't understand this whole history, don't understand. So you have those type of people that can come in and, they destroy the whole thing. And you talked earlier about the groups of people that turn on each other, jealous of each other. So we know that a house is only divided from within. It's divided when we turn on each other, when we're not willing to, that's what's happening right now, even in our own country, that the covenant, the Constitution, nobody wants to abide by that anymore. So the house has been torn down. So what do we do in building this nation that's going to keep that everybody together? What do we do? Is it education? What is it that is going to keep that house strong?
Well, that's what I'm basically no different from what I said before. There has to be a rehabilitation process. And this would be the fact that you would clean your people up. You would create your own drug and alcohol facilities. You would create your own shelters for battered women and children. You would create your own senior homes or veteran homes or things of that nature. These are one of the things that you can do to, these are some of the things that we can do to invest into these minds, is to sober them up, to get them out of that trauma. But yes, entering into this nation, there has to be a rehabilitation process. Absolutely. There's no entering if there is no rehabilitation process, if you do not agree. So that what that in a sense means, if you do not consent to rehabilitation, then you would rather go it alone, and good luck to that. However, if you want a change and if you want to a new paradigm, you will do whatever it takes to get a different life, have a different life than what you've been experiencing, because you know deep down in your heart that is these streets are, which are artificial, are they're uncompromising.
Pastor Archie, I see your hand. I recognize you.
Yes, ma'am. Wow. People, you see, as we say in SRC, we are flesh with God inside us. We are carrying God around in us. We have to be very careful, because everyone, even though God is in us, everybody does not operate at that level of being as God is. You understand what I'm saying? Well, even though everyone says, oh yeah, God is in me, but you still can operate at a lower level than what God would operate as, because I'm hearing, there are certain people that do get in position to make rules and everything. All of those folks don't operate at the higher consciousness, as I was saying earlier. So we can say that God is in us, but it's just like saying that I got a debit card for $1 million laying up on my desk, but I never activate it because I don't want to activate it, because I don't want to give this person or that person to do this or do that. God may be in everyone, but you have to raise your consciousness to that higher level of where God operates at, because he's there, he's dormant.
That's right.
There are things in us that cause us to keep us in these situations that we're talking about, because we would not allow ourselves to go above the animalistic way of thinking. And that's what those folks did that took our documents and burnt our documents up. You got to face the truth. And a lot of the truth may hurt sometimes, but the truth will open some things up when you start to look back and see, as the brother was saying, they don't want to wait 50 years to be cultivated or to be spiritually cultivated the way that we should be. They want to jump right in there and start the taking over and taking things and doing things. And that is not God's nature. That is operating at that lower nature. As I see it, I look at myself, in the religion, I had to stay a minister for 15 years. 15 years. That is man's doing because they didn't think that you were ready to move up and begin to lead people and teach people. And the folks that took over the when the all these shrines and stuff were people broken in all this stuff in Egypt and took all those documents and all that stuff. They took that stuff and made it put it into a way that would satisfy them, not what our ancestors had put forth, because it's a hard thing sometimes to sit back and wait till you have matured. As we say that the world says that at 18 you're grown, and then 21 you can get liquor, but actually a Kemet requires you to be, you're going to be 28 before you could actually mature and get all the understanding that you need. You should begin to operate on a higher level at the age 28. But think about it. Look at all these childish people that we have leading the nation.
That's right. That's right, Pastor Arch. And Brother Jakeem, you talked about, we have to re-educate. It's almost like when you think of your computer's not acting right, you have to do a reboot, right? Reboot. And so that's what you're talking about, restart. And so, because that's mean everything that what we thought we knew, we got to re-educate people. Because you're right, Pastor Archie, people just can't jump in and start, because otherwise they're going to tear down the whole house. So you must, and I'm still on human connectivity, still talking about our young people and what we need to do to help them to be awakened, because right now we have some serious issues out there with our young people. And Keena, I see your hand up, and then we'll go to you, Tamisha. But let's you jump into this conversation. And anyone else on here who want to unmute themselves, you might have missed it, but if you want to unmute yourself, ask our brother Jakeem, or just add something to the topic, please feel free to do that. Sister Keena.
Hey, rising everybody. Brother Jakeem, I'm so excited about some of the language and the verbiage that you brought to the table that is really helping me and assisting me and some of the work that I do in my community. I actually brought the Juneteenth celebration back to the forefront back in 2019. So I'm excited to bring that verbiage to the conversation, not reparations, but we want to be restored. That's very powerful concept that I'm so grateful to be conscious of now and moving forward. So I would ask you, what would be like, for instance, we're having discussions right now about some of the events that we'll have during Juneteenth. And initially I wanted to do somewhat of like a acknowledgement of our ancestors in this area. And I mean, we're normally, in the past, we've done these events at little parks, like out in the cut, little community parks. But this year we're going to be downtown. And of course, there's a Confederate monument downtown that is right near the depot or the stage area that we'll be having our events. So I have some people that I'm working with that don't want to be anywhere near the monument, that, they want to try to get it torn down. Some people are like, well, that's their history. This is a part of their history. If this is what they want to honor, and, why go against that? Let's just focus on building what we're building, not necessarily trying to tear down what they've built. So I guess just in sharing that, what would you offer as advice for us as we're planning for this year?
Advice would be education again, because the original Confederacy was us. Mm-hmm. People don't know the Confederacy flag came from the Cherokees, which is us, or what you call the Aniunwia. You don't even know that's your own flag, and you think that just because someone else is waving it, that somehow it belongs to them. Even the colors don't belong to them. The red, white, and blue Egypt symbolize the three crowns of Egypt. Red, white, and blue symbolize the different crowns in upper, mid, and lower Egypt. That's where red, white, and blue comes from.
Wow. So we're trying to tear down something that we don't even recognize is ours. Wow.
Just because it has a different face.
I love that. Tamisha, did that finalize your question, Sister Kina?
Yes.
Okay, great. Tamisha Burgess, you have your hand up.
Yes. Okay. So I just wrote down a few points here, but we're still talking about human connectivity and mirroring, right?
Yes.
Okay. So with mirroring and human connectivity, I wrote down yin and yang. I wrote down balance, dark and light, phoenix and dragon. Pastor Archie mentioned the God within us and operating from this lower nature. And I know in previous episodes, we talked about this balance between this idea of light and dark, this idea of angel versus demons. Okay, again, going back to the dragon and the phoenix. It's always these yin and yang, sun and moon, light and dark aspects. And I feel like we continue to go right back or be pulled right back into what we've been taught to believe about this idea of God and how to connect to the God within ourselves and then the God within each of us, within other people. And a very core part that we are missing or sweeping under the rug is God is essentially everything, right?
Self as well.
Even the stuff we don't like, right? Even the stuff we consider these shadow elements, these, these taboo kind of parts of the human core, human nature, is the fact, or not even human nature, just an existence. This truth for me is God really is not all benevolent. Okay? When we think about balance, when we think about what God is in its entirety, it is not all benevolent. God is the perfection of light and dark both existing. Okay. A little while ago, somebody mentioned restored versus reparation. And I'm just jumping on to the next point here. Somebody mentioned restored versus reparation. And I put next to that self-fulfilling. So in order for us to be restored, this is the work that we have to put in ourselves. Reparations is having our hand out. Restoration means let me get in this darkness, in this soil, in this shadow, and do the work myself. Pastor Archie mentioned activating the God within, right? This is activating both our light and our dark, activating both our yin and our yang, our shadow and our light cells. That is the only way restoration is going to happen, is if it is self-fulfilling and not because of a handout. Okay. And then self-fulfilling and unifying with those who are doing the same work or who care about doing the same work. This isn't about, for me, I am over trying to convince our people, okay, to work together, to unify, to, let's build together, let's create together. This is about beings who are, somebody mentioned that I'm a multidimensional being. This is about multidimensional beings being multidimensional in whatever body you're in, okay? So the days are done where we're having to convince somebody to jump on board with our ideas or jump on board with building a nation. Either you are doing the work to activate and you are unifying with others that are doing the same, or you will be left behind. That's how this works, okay? And then Tammy in the chat, hi Tammy. I think Tammy is new here, so welcome to SRC. Thank you for being here. Mentioned in the chat, younger generation. She wants to support the younger generation on speaking the truth. If that's right, go ahead and comment really quickly. I think I wrote it right, but the comment went by pretty fast. But that you want to support the younger generation on speaking the truth. And then next to that, I put investing in our people. You're absolutely right. What we consider the millennials or the younger generation, they are the ones who are going to be leading this new world coming into view. we see that there's been a lot of birth happening. People are calling babies pandemic babies. I hate that term, but there's been a lot of birth. Why? Because there are star seeds, and indigo children, and rainbow children. Some of us are rainbow children. We're already here, but there's been so many births because the universal world is like the energetic world is like, okay, let's jump into these bodies. Let's go into this realm because we are the ones that's going to be leading it. And so there had to be plenty because the majority that are here have failed. So they are coming into the bodies and they're coming to lead. And so it's our responsibility as the rainbow children, as the ones that have been awakened, have been activated, did the work to activate, doing the work to activate. Activation isn't just knowing this knowledge, it's being it. We can talk about this all day. We can read books, we can do research, but there is a difference between knowing and being. So those of us that are here who are being are responsible for what we know, and teaching these children that are coming into this realm and the ones that are already here how to create and innovate this new world. And let me tell you, they're already coming. These children that are here, they're already coming activated. They're already coming in here. Some of these children are creating and doing things, and they just came out of the vagina. Okay. So it's our responsibility to teach this new world. So Tammy, yes, the younger generation is the target because, and no offense to anyone who's over a certain age, if you're still on your journey, still evolving, we all are. But a lot that are here pretty much have already gone down with the ship because of the mindset. Okay. So, Miss Anala, you mentioned, mommy, I can't even call you Miss Anala. I'm trying to be politically correct on SRC, but it just doesn't feel right. So you mentioned the minds of the people. I know off camera, we had a conversation about, yes, you can, talk about the work, but it's really what begins here so that you can even get to wanting to do the work, right? And so the mind, it's what has caused a lot of people to burn in these energetic flames, to burn in the old, because the old is burned away. We see the systems crash. We saw, our systems fail. There's talk about our money system is going to be failing pretty soon. And so the work, Tammy, again, yes, is to align and to work with the minds of those who are going to be taking on this new world, because a lot of us that are already here have already gone down. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much for that, Tamisha. Now, Brother Jakeem, I know that the Moors, and I went to your website and I really was impressed with the educational platform that you guys have laid out there. And I'm thinking that when, because education is such a broad word, but I'm thinking that some of the things that Tamisha mentioned and some of the things that you heard on a panel, I'm assuming that people can get that knowledge of, for example, understanding that flag where we want to get taken down, because I was one of those people in line too with NAACP. Let's get this down. Didn't realize what that meant. So I'm assuming that when you take some of those courses that you guys offer, you get this type of information.
Well, absolutely. There are things being put that in place right now. To be honest, though, for the most part, we're getting you more politically in line. But those are some of the things that will be talked about. Because all you have to do is ask a question, and we have that a part of the curriculum as well. Now, we will further go into that later on, but absolutely. Matter of fact, one of my good friends, Abdullah El Talib Mosey Bey, has a book called Moors and Masonry, and he goes into a bit of that. With that, he also has the compass and square, and it goes into the science of where all of it comes from. When you see the X, that is a symbol of the equinoxes. When you see the cross, that's the tile, which was originally a tool of measurement to measure the flooding of the Nile River, because like, for example, We think the 4th of July is their holiday, and no, it's not. It's an Egyptian holiday when Sirius rising had affected the water so that the Nile River would flood, and the soot from the bottom of the river would fertilize the land. And the Nilometer, which later on became the tau, which later on became the cross, was the measurement of such things.
Wow.
See, that's why it is the education. It's just so much that that's why rehabilitation and education is so important for somebody to even come in today, because you cannot come in and build something and don't have an understanding of this. Not saying that you do need to be grounded in this to a certain degree, because of those things you think belongs to someone else does not. You're just, again, these things have been hidden from us. We're not gonna negate the fact that these things have been hidden from us intentionally, because they don't want you to get where you need to be. There's a concerted effort, there are people, this term conspiracy theorists is such a fraud, because you have a history of being conspired against, and that's not hidden. However, what's hidden is your knowledge, and that's all it is. It's just you getting back to what it is you understood from nature. When you cut open an orange, you'll see the pattern, or or a tomato, you'll see the pattern of what you call a cross or what you call an X. And this is where we get these things from. So the education is real important, and I wanted to piggyback off something that Tamisha said, that yes, God is both light and dark, generator, operator, and destroyer. See, but the problem is having the balance to understand which is necessary at the time, which we lost sight of at some point.
Ashe, my brother. Yes.
And we're not, and I want to make this as well, it's not about us convincing our people, because if we're doing the work, if you built it, they will come. So it doesn't, what needs convincing when you built it and they come?
That's
Indeed.
right.
Trust me, you're gonna know that this is what's going on here is way better than what you've been living. And like you said, at a point, a snake must shed its skin. It's not pretty. However, it's necessary for growth.
That's right.
Indeed. So last time we talked about emotional intelligence. This is where this comes from. When you've done the work to activate the God within, the God within will lead and guide you on when and what to become, depending only on life or death situations. So, last time we talked about judgment, I think. So same thing, everything boils down to whether or not a situation, people, places, or things are safe for you, okay? People, places, and things are safe for you. And so when this God is activated in you, it will let you know when to operate in this shadow and when to operate in this light. Absolutely. But only in life or death situations, not for competition, not for overpowering, not for usurping someone else's power, not for trying to, again, I'm going to go back to competition, because that seems to be a really big thing that comes up, especially in our community, in melanin communities. We'll form these groups, we'll form these organizations, we'll have chats like this, and you have these entities, these beings that come in, and instead of doing what they're called to do, they want to do what you're doing. Try to duplicate what you're doing instead of doing what you're called to do. But if you've done the work to activate, not just know, but to also be, then you just showing up in a room, you just speaking your truth will be the work, will be enough. And people will follow that example and say, okay, follow that example, meaning not let me do what you're doing, how you're trying to do it, but let me do my inner work to activate as well. So you're absolutely right.
And I want to say we are that goes back to Tamisha saying that we are members of the same one. And like a hand is not going to try to be a foot and vice versa. So
Like you don't get out there and tell the fireman that he need to arrest somebody. Like, come on.
that's exactly
It's
right.
simple. Just like you have an ecology, every animal doesn't even do the same thing. Every animal has its place, just like every person has its place. If this sister does art, do not make her a cashier. That is what she does.
That's right. That's exactly right. Tamisha, I know you wouldn't finish your thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's yes, you're right. It's individual value, but it's really just actually doing the work, going into your dark self and getting whatever is in there, bringing that out. But a lot of us are avoiding that work, and so a lot of us remain inactivated and not doing what we've come here to do.
That's right.
So the work just doesn't get done. But absolutely, Brother Illustrious, it is definitely doing the work to create that emotional intelligence so that you will know when and what to become.
And Pastor Archer, go ahead. Pastor Archer, I see your hand is up, and then what I want to do right after that, because we are, God, this conversation is so good. We have some people on here today that I want to give all of them an opportunity to shout out, say what they need to say. I know that Denise, I want to go to you right after Pastor Archie, because I know that you have some information you want to put out there. Denise is my sister in Women on the Rise. So Pastor Archie, go right on and bring that to the table.
Well, wow, I keep losing my question, a thought there, because so much good information coming out, especially with that flag thing. Now, I didn't even realize that myself. So it would be safe to say that we need to learn the symbolism behind, as we were saying earlier in SRC, learn what that symbolism is behind what you see. Because believing what is acquired is totally different from knowing about it. Believing and knowing is totally different, because the Bible speaks itself about we perish because we don't know. It doesn't say we perish because we don't believe.
Right. It don't say we perish because of lack of faith.
That's right.
No, but we don't, we have to analyze that, and that he is so right on that. And this age is the age of knowing. Aquarius is the age of knowing. You're not gonna we're out of Pisces. That was believing.
That's right. That is so right. God, this is so good. We got to do it. We got to do it again. We just got to, because this is such a great conversation. We have quite a bit of audience on today, and I know they're here because Brother Jakeem, some of them have questions. And although we don't have a lot of time, I know that Mark Thomas is probably saying, hey, we are out of time. But I do want to give, if it's anybody out there that want to add a comment, ask a question regarding our Brother Jakeem, please do so right now.
I got one question. This is to the panel or to our brother, Hakeem. I wanted to go back to the flag. That was kind of mind-blowing for me. And I didn't know this information. So I want to ask this question with all that has happened around, surrounding the flag issue. And you hear about our people are kneeling to the flag, refusing to pledge allegiance to their flag is what we call it. Is that a wrong thing or a right thing to do?
Well, when you kneel, that is a sign of submission, for one. So you have to understand what the symbolism in the gesture that you're doing and what it symbolizes first. Secondly, again, we have to go back to education. When you look at the United States flag, one is being rented from Great Britain, and it is a corporate flag. A corporate banner, not a flag.
Wow.
Not a flag of a nation, because the United States is not a nation. It is a corporation or a union between different European factions. And we were never intended to be, there's nowhere written where we have been ever instituted as citizens ever. And that's why the Dred Scott decision is so important, because it lets you know that nobody from African descent can ever become a citizen. And it has never been overturned, not once. And people would argue that the 14th Amendment did it, but I have treaty cases that prove otherwise, that they didn't. And I even have cases where the Constitution doesn't even protect Albions because it was never meant for them. This was created by the Lord proprietors, which were running the colonies, and their lawyers, and it was created to protect their interests in land and ownership.
Wow.
Not equality of man in no type of way, because the citizens were the ones fighting the battles, not writing the laws. So in a sense, we're not the only one who's been duped. They've been duped as well. So same thing. If the Albions were smart and they understood their history, they would make a treaty with us.
Wow. We're gonna talk about this some more. I'm hoping that we can bring our brother back again, because what I'd like for us to, because we've talked about where God is. We know that God is within us and all of these things, but now, what are some of these symbols? What do they mean? And really the Constitution, what does it mean to us? And maybe when we realize that we are not a part of all of this, that we can now want to start to visualize, imagine another nation, a new nation, one that we're strong in. We can use that God-given gifts that lie within us, and we can make those things happen. We can cause them to happen, because now we know that all the work you might be doing, all the things you're doing for this, for some nation that's never going to respect you, never going to love you, that you can do the same things for yourself. So I really want to bring this conversation back again. All right. So with that being said, let's just take a round robin real fast. Brother Lavelle Rosser, we have not heard from you at all. And I need you to get in there, because I know you always have some good stuff that you want to bring to the table.
Okay, once again, SRC outstanding, and Brother Illustrious outstanding. I just want to say, going back to the flag piece, if Brother Illustrious would one more time, if he didn't, because I got here a little late because of the time change, the difference between the flag, okay, that represents, or the banner, and the flag that we see that has the gold fringe on it.
The flag that you see that has a gold fringe on it symbolizes war. And what you guys don't understand, when not understanding what the gold fringe symbolizes, is war upon you. Because they are going by, they're not even going by their Constitution. They're going by maritime law, which is the law of the sea. You are a vessel, you are a ship. That's why you go to a dock tour when you are born or when you are ill. And it's a birth certificate that you receive at birth, BERTH, as opposed to BIRTH. See, they play with words so much. That's one of the biggest problems. But to finish the point about the gold fringe, is first of all, they are warring upon you every time you're in a court. That is what's called a battle, which is very close to battle. These people are waging war on you and you don't even know it. The citizens are being waged war upon, and they don't have no idea. People think World War III is us going against China and Russia. No, it is them warring upon you.
And when you say them, are we talking about them meaning the system? Because there's no particular person.
Yeah, it's no particular person, it's the system. But if we do want to get specific, the Vatican, what we call modern day is state of Israel, and the Washington, United States Corporation are the antagonists of the entire world.
Wow.
This
when
is
the difference in spelling, I'm hearing, we know that words are spells. That's why they call it spelling. So switching out those letters is placing spells on the minds of the people. And so this war, this battle that is happening, is a psychological war, which is why part of my work is addressing the minds of those who will be taking on this new age that is here.
That's right. And we're out of time, but it's so important that, because we mentioned at the top of the broadcast that we are we're living now, operating in a digital system. And this digital system is, it's not like it was before when, somebody had to send some smoke screens or, you had to, maybe go somewhere to get, it's all over the media. So it's activating faster. And those are some of the things that we must be careful of. But so how many of you guys want to see our brother Jakeem back again? How many? Let me see. I've been clapping those hands, and we want to see. So we want to ask him to come back again, because we have not even got to the bottom of all this, what he's bringing to the table. So, and I see in hand claps and everything here, and people sending the chat. So we want to do this again. So with that, I want to now just, if anyone else has anything else they want to say before we end, I want to give you that opportunity to say that. Brother Ray, I know that you've been sending some chats. Is there anything you want to say before we end this conversation and take it over to Mark Thomas? Okay, but he said, please return my brother. Okay, good with that. With that, we love you guys. Let me turn it over to Mark Thomas, our moderator, who is going to take us out. This has been a great conversation. Mark Thomas.
Hello, okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good, yeah, great show today. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our great guest, illustrious Jakeem Bey. Excellent. I would just bring really basic and Brother Jakeem was talking about it, is a battle or a struggle for knowledge. That's what it is to me. That what we're talking about is knowledge and how you manage that knowledge on an individual basis and on a societal basis as well. So we're going to sign out today. All of us here at SRC want to thank the audience for attending today's presentation. We really appreciate your patronage and encourage you to email us your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcept@gmail.com. Also, don't forget that this presentation will be available on YouTube very soon. If you attended today's program, please go to the Shifting Religious Concepts site on YouTube and give us a thumbs up, subscribe, please. It's one of the few ways we get public attention, and it really helps us to promote the SRC mission. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to shiftingreligiousconcepts.com/registration and join us. So our next presentation will be next week, same time, Sunday, March 20th at 10 o'clock. So please join us then for more conversations on the power of human connectivity. And until then, we wish you all, as always, peace, health, wisdom, and love.